Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here tonight to Mount Calvary Cemetery for what will be a fun evening. My name is Jeff Barraclough. I'm the Executive Director of the Manchester Historic Association. And on behalf of all of our board members and the Majestic Theater, I want to welcome you all to this event. For those of you who have not been to an event like this before, in a few moments we're going to divide you all into the groups that you've been assigned, and then we'll get started. We just have a few things to go over first. First, I just want to give a little plug for our organization. The Manchester Historic Association was founded in 1896. We are basically Manchester's historical society. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and share Manchester's history. We do that through a variety of ways. We have a research library and archives on Amherst Street. We host a variety of programs like this. And we have the Millyard Museum on Commercial Street, where we tell the story of Manchester through our museum, through our permanent exhibit and rotating exhibits that we have throughout the year. So we encourage you all, if you are not a member, we encourage you to join us. We are a member-supported organization. We rely on the support of our members to enable us to continue to do programs like this and support the Millyard Museum. Christy, our Director of Education, has brochures about our membership if you are interested. Please see her afterwards. I would now at this point like to introduce Rob from the Majestic Theater.
Hi.
And
I can be nice and loud because I'm a theater person.
We have a great partnership working with them on a variety of events over the last several years. So thank you to Rob, and Rob will just say a few words.
Real quick, so Rob from Majestic Theater, one of the founders from 102 years ago. We were not founded in 1896, but between Majestic Theater and Ted Herbert's, which is part of us, we collectively celebrate over 90 years of making theater and music in the community. We have one more show left. It's Nonsense. Now, you don't have to, it's Nonsense 2, sorry. You don't have to be Catholic, and you don't have to have seen the first Nonsense to understand and enjoy the show. Next weekend at our studio theater, we have two theaters that we run out of. Our studio theater on Page Street, and if you might go, well, where is that? It's between Hanover Street and Candia Road, and it's been many things over the years. We also work out the Dairy Opera House for some of our bigger shows. So I have Karen has cards. She's in the park, so see Karen and I for cards. Go to our website, majestictheater.net. Ted Herbert's has been part of us since 2016, when the Herbert family retired and wanted us to carry the torch. And they're also part of us on Page Street as well. So you're never too young to act in a show or play an instrument or come and see a show or come to one of our recitals. So definitely stop by and check us out. And we're really thrilled too. We've been doing these for many, many years now. We don't even know how many we've had.
This is number 10.
This is number 10. This is our 10th. And we have a really good time. All the actors that you see are people that are not experts on these characters. So if you start, especially a couple of our younger ones, if you start to ask a lot of questions about the person they're portraying, then you might get this really glazed over look. But that's why we have the Historic Association and the Millyard Museum and the Research Library. Or ask Jeff or Christy, because they know everything about everything in Manchester. And just thanks for coming tonight. Back to Christy.
All right, so I always get to do the housekeeping, and I'm going to welcome you too. Thank you so much. These programs are a really exciting way to outreach to the community. So what we are going to do is you have all been assigned a sticker with a person on it, and you have a tour guide that is assigned to that. So the biggest thing tonight is safety. Goffstown Road is very, very, very busy. So when I dismiss your group, I want to make sure that you all stay together. So you are only as fast as your slowest member. So identify them, but keep it to yourself, and then stick with them throughout the entire time. We are going to stick mostly to the roads, but some of the graves are a little higher up on the hill. So just be very aware of the uneven footing. I have a first aid kit that I would really not like to use, but I'll be walking around if you need me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the groups. When you hear the bell, when you hear the bell, it'll be time
Get the bell job.
to move on to the next group. There are spaces between some of the groups, so the actors are going to let you know who you're going to next. We are going to try to make this as seamless as possible, We are in a race against impending rain, possibly, and also impending taps at 7, which is kind of cool. So you will probably be there to catch that if you want, but hopefully we will be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the groups with the furthest one being first. So if
before
you
do that, let me just reveal the taps. Catholic War Veterans does taps every night at 7 o'clock between Memorial Day and September 11th. They've done it for years and years and years and years. So even if you want to come back on another night, there'll always be taps near the mausoleum statue, which you can see straight ahead, at 7 o'clock between Memorial Day and September 11th. So if we happen to be still going at that time, we will pause for that and then we'll continue.
All right, if you have group number 6, Ulrich Bourgeois, you're going to be with Sue, and Sue's gonna take you. This is the biggest hike of the evening.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Welcome to the Monroe family plot. This is the resting place of Arthur E. Monroe. And you can see his stone is right there. It's the second one from the end. I am the son of Joseph and followed in my father's footsteps in the hardware business. That's Joseph there, Joseph J. JJ Monroe's Hardware. I attended the old St. Mary's College and Central High School, leaving to attend Hesser Business College. And I entered my full-time into my father's store in 1904. And in June of 1905, I introduced the first installment sale in the history of the Monroe store. I sold a stove on agreement for $10 down, a lot of money, and $12 weekly payments. In 1915, I purchased my father's share of the business. So just 10 years later. In 1926, I was inaugurated as mayor of Manchester. During my first term as mayor, the athletic field, now it's called Gill Stadium, was bought from the Majestic Manufacturing Company. Manchester Airport began to be developed, and in July of 1929, I became the first Manchester mayor to fly in an airplane. Pretty impressive. I organized the first industrial committee to interest new firms to come to Manchester, as well as the first traffic lights in our city. So the traffic lights, you can thank me for that. We all enjoy those. I am also credited with being the man who would lead in the Queen City's darkest hour. I would not let Manchester die when the Majestic Manufacturing Company liquidated in 1936. I proposed the forming of Majestic Industries to purchase the mill properties and the leasing of and sale of the mills to new industries, which would guarantee jobs and payroll to the citizens of Manchester. I was considered the savior of Manchester. You can imagine the mills closing, all those people with no work. In July of 1930, the Mayor Monroe March, it's a song dedicated in my honor, was played for the first time. I was honored to lead Manchester in such a difficult time, and pleased that my efforts and vision helped shape Manchester into the great city that it is. And it is. You all live in Manchester? Some do and some don't. Well, thank you for visiting Manchester. Thank you for visiting my family's plot. And we'll wait for the bell before I send you to Miss Lambert, who is anxiously waiting to speak with you.
How long did the Monroe family own the hardware?
Own the hardware store? Well, it was quite a few years. I don't have the exact number for you, but it was a lot of years. There were a lot of people in Manchester would tell me that they started out working for the Monroes, just doing odd things around the store. So they employed some of the Manchester residents from very young ages. There's your bell, ladies. If you step over, that's number 2, right over there. Thank you for coming by. Enjoy your tour.
I am Miss Sophie Lambert Francoeur, wife of George Francoeur and president of the Lambert Funeral Home in Manchester. I was born in Masonville, Quebec, the daughter of John and Lucy Lambert Royer. In 1895, my family moved to Manchester, where I attended the Academy of Notre Dame of St. Augustine Parish, and then attended and graduated the Academy of Notre Dame of Quebec. I married Benjamin C. Lambert, and together we founded the Lambert Funeral Home. Benjamin was born in Lewiston, Maine. He was educated at the Christian Brothers College in Amawalk, New York, and was a graduate of the Manhattan College in 1901. His first profession was teaching school in Providence, Rhode Island for 4 years. He came to Manchester in 1905 and served his apprenticeship in the undertaking business. In 1914, he purchased the Godbois Funeral Home. I joined my husband in the business, and after Benjamin's death in 1946, I became one of the first lady embalmers in the country. I was very active in my community as a parishioner of St. George Church and membership in the Solidarity of St. Anne. I was also a member of the Third Order of St. Francis and St. Mary Parish and a past president of the ACA Villa Marie Antoinette, during which time I organized the first girl drill team in the Manchester area. I was the only remaining active charter member of Davignon Shoe Club, Snowshoe Club, where I gained the nickname Mother of Snowshoes. Other favorite clubs included the Joliet Ladies Club, Notre Dame Hospital Associates, Catholic War veteran Roger Bernard Post Auxiliary, William Jutras Post, Franco-American Legion Post 9 Auxiliary, National Funeral Directors Association, Les Artisans, Women Catholic Order of Foresters. I was a very busy woman. Thank you. What I think is really fascinating about myself is the time period in which I lived. I was born in 1886 and ended up dying in 1967. So the fashion that I saw come through my life from the late 1800s all the way up to 1960s, that is night and day. That is like a whole other world from when it began to when it ended. But I'm very grateful that I passed away in a lot more comfortable clothing than what I was wearing when I lived.
Is the Lambert Funeral Home on Elm Street?
I am not sure.
It is.
It is.
I get them mixed up.
It
It's
is.
the big brick one. It's beautiful. It's landscaped very nicely.
On Elm Street.
North Elm.
Oh, is that up by the church?
There's the Brookstones Society Church. It's beyond that.
It's
more
beyond
like a
that.
road. It's almost to Webster Street.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's beautiful property. They keep it. I know because my neighbors owned it for a while. They just sold it a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Well, now you can say that you met their predecessor.
I'm going to show them your picture.
Brady Sullivan. Okay, yes. You would think that I would remember, but it was so long ago. My memory is quite foggy. It's really fun. You're welcome. Now you're stuck with
The
Steve.
Mativiers. They live on my street. They owned it for a while.
Her mom, my grandmother, passed and was shown in
At
that
funeral home.
at that funeral home.
Really?
Just down there.
Wow. She's in this cemetery?
Yeah, so we'll remember it every time we walk by.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I was thinking when I was that you think of a lady embalmer as somebody that would probably be very plain and very like, oh, lady embalmer. But they had to meet with every person that came through, and that being the female in the business would be the one that would take on a lot of the speaking to people and comforting. So you have to be very well put together in that position. But I would throw my clothes off and getting comfy clothes to go snowshoeing.
This sounds very interesting. Yeah.
I was a very busy lady. Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is M.A. Normand, and I was the founder of the Normand Brothers Bakery. I was born in Saint-Marie-de-Beauce, province de Quebec, and emigrated in 1887 to Manchester, finding employment at the Amoskeag Mills. But it was in 1899 that I found my true calling when I started working in the Marie L. Bussière Bakery and Grocery Store at 309 Pine Street. In 1901, I decided to enter business for myself. Taking my brother George as a partner, I began the Normand Brothers Bakery Company on the first floor of a tenement at 13 Laval Street here on the west side. In 1911, I combined my business with another brother, Léonce, who had bought out the A.L. Caron Bakery. In 1912, we built a two-story wooden building next door to our 13 Laval Street building. Delivery of our delicious bread at the time was by 6 horse-drawn wagons. We continued to expand our business and in 1912 purchased the Amédée Thibodeau Bakery at 29 Pearl Street. That gave us the rights to the well-known Edgeworth and Butternut bread labels. Shortly after, we were able to purchase our first motorized delivery vehicle. You may remember some of our popular breads, such as Bambi, B-A-M-B-Y, best American-made bread yet, as well as Twist and Donald Duck breads. Construction of our new bakery at Laval Street, designed by the architect J.N. Garton, was completed in 1934 and was the home of our business until it closed in 1962. I would have been proud to know that in 1940 my sons Silvio and Raul, also buried here, started the S&R Baking Company using the first initial of each of their names to produce even more delicious bread. Yes.
We used to be able to pick up some hot bread at the bakery on Laval Street on Sundays.
That's great.
Can't do that anymore.
No.
There's a nice bake shop on Kelly that makes fresh bread.
Yeah.
It's called Bake Shop.
Yeah.
I live
I've
like
heard
2
good
blocks
things
from
about
it.
it.
Yeah. That's the only place I know of right now.
They also have delicious, I think, cupcakes and
Yeah,
other
they
things
make
with lots of
sweets,
calories.
So I am Reverend Alfie Leclerc, and in 1914 I was the founding pastor at St. John the Baptist Church. I was born in Quebec, and coming to Manchester at a young age, I studied at the St. Augustine Grammar School, and for the priesthood at the Grand Seminary in Montreal. My first assignment was from 1902 to 1909 at St. George's Church here in Manchester. I later served at St. John the Baptist from 1914 until 1921, at which time I became the pastor at St. Marie's Church. One of my principal achievements during my stay at St. Marie's was the development of the Mount Calvary Cemetery into one of the finest Catholic cemeteries in New England. I directed many improvements to the Hebe and Holy Angels School at St. Marie's, and on the occasion of the parish's 50th anniversary, I had the interior of the church renovated. My devotion to the poor and needy of the parish were well known, although I never liked to talk about it publicly. Many a West Side merchant could tell you of a note that I had written for the benefit of a needy family. I never sought much for myself, and I never had an automobile until 1927, when a parishioner gave me one for my silver anniversary to the priesthood. I enjoyed my daily walks to the cemetery, and I'm happy to be in my final resting place in a crypt under this very altar. Notice my beautiful medallions, there's 2 of them, one over here, that were executed by Francois Trudeau Boucher, the niece of Mayor Trudeau and student of Lucian Gosling, who is down there. So, and that concludes my little speech. So feel free to walk around and check out the altar. On both sides, yes.
A little. It says, I am the resurrection and the life.
Whoever believes in me, yep, shall never die.
Is he the only one?
That's in underneath the crypt, yes. But I know that there are other clergymen that are all along the bushes here that have been buried. you learn little tidbits as you do it. Like sometimes the audience knows more than I know.
Save it for the next time.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. My name is Theodora Trudeau. I was born in 1871 and passed away in 1937. I was the wife to former Mayor George E. Trudeau. My husband was a proprietor of a wholesale plumbing supplies company which bears his name, and he also played a pivotal role in the civic and political life of the city. George served Manchester as its chief executive for 2 terms. I was born in Joliet, Quebec, but came here to live with my family when I was a young girl, and I have resided in Manchester since. I was an attendant of St. George's Church, where I also served in the St. Anne's Maternity. I also enjoyed my time as an auxiliary of the Club Joliet. My husband, George, served as mayor of Manchester from 1922 to 1925. He considered having the Queen City Bridge built and named as his greatest accomplishment as mayor. Are you familiar with the Queen City Bridge?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you why my husband had it built and named the Queen City Bridge. Manchester is the Queen City of New Hampshire, and I believe it would be a fitting name for the bridge. Another accomplishment of which George was quite proud was the erection of an elevator in City Hall. To quote him again, "The citizens of Manchester should not be forced to climb flights of stairs." So if you've been to City Hall and used the elevator, you can thank my husband George for that. In 1947, at his death, his will specified a sum of money, and our beautiful home facing Stark Park at 657 North River Road was to be left to the Roman Catholic Bishop of Manchester. The home is called Beau Séjour, and the bishop lives in that home today. Now, there is a story about my husband that we usually prefer to keep within the family, but seeing as you were all so kind to come out here and be with us this evening, I think I might be able to share it with you if you promise to keep it all on the down low. Well, you see, my husband George suffered from a number of ailments in his life, and the condition of diabetes being foremost among them. Because of this malady, later in life, his left leg had to be amputated. Now, I should also perhaps mention that my husband was a great believer in spirits, mystics, and the afterlife. So it was that he went into consultation with a psychic who recommended that his amputated limb be buried here at the family plot at Mount Calvary Cemetery, on the chance that he could be reunited with his lost limb in the afterlife. Now, if you think that's the end of the story, it's not. There's more. After the limb had been buried, George began to experience strange and severe pain in the leg that he had lost. After a time, he reached out to his psychic, who asked him in what position the leg had been buried. George replied that the leg had been buried in a horizontal fashion. "Ah," said the psychic, "a lost leg must be buried in the position of a standing man. That is the source of your pain." So, on the advice of the psychic, George had the miniature casket containing his leg exhumed and returned to the earth in an appropriately vertical position. Thereafter, he never again suffered from the condition we now know as phantom leg syndrome.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So question, was he buried vertically then?
I do not believe so. Of course, he died 10 years after I did, but there's his marker. And there's Florence, our son, who was born in 1904 and passed away at the age of 5 at 1909. And then there's my marker, Theodora, but no leg. There's no marker for the leg, so I just hope it was buried close to George. Not on this. Thank you so much.
Great story.
Thank you.
Come. Come closer. You can come over here as well. You can, all the way back there, you can hear me. I speak nice clearly. And then everybody else can you come over this way. Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Je m'appelle Auric Bourgeois. My name is Auric Bourgeois. Welcome. I was born in Waterloo, Quebec, and I emigrated here to Manchester in my early 20s. A photographer by profession, as you can tell, this is my camera. I had the ability to speak both French and English fluently, which enabled me to set up a studio here in Manchester amongst the diverse ethnic population here. I secured employment with the Jean B. company as a photographer after I persuaded him that my photographic abilities would be an asset to his company. I spent much of my free time recording Manchester's street scenes, which were used as postcards. Perhaps you have some postcards sent to your friends in the mail, okay? I rode my bicycle, transporting my camera and tripod and holders necessary for producing the images on the 5 by 7 inch glass plate negatives. A week's worth of work for me included aerial views and buildings, interiors, portraits of politicians and clergymen and families, individuals, and special events such as parades and qu'est-ce que c'est? Dedications and weddings. I always like a good wedding and taking photos of. When I photographed Halley's Comet, you know Halley's Comet up in the sky. In 1910, the Manchester Mirror newspaper said of me, and I quote, these are not my words, this is Manchester Mirror, they said, his new stunt with the camera places him far and away ahead of any amateurs or professionals photographers for enterprise and ingenuity. Many men who are considered the greatest of experts with their lenses have watched and waited in vain. Monsieur Bourgeois, from a housetop, my very own housetop, 188 Walnut Street, obtained a picture which is remarkable for its absolute clearness of detail and accuracy. Très bien, très bien, très bien. Oh, and I became equally known for befriending the hermit of Mosquito Pond, Charles Lambert. Monsieur Lambert, he became a hermit for many years near Crystal Lake. So they call it Crystal Lake now, today. When on a Sunday afternoon in 1900, I discovered him when I was photographing nature. The hermit in his lifetime, he was not the friendliest of people. No. He was very mean to people. He stayed away from people. And he could only be seen when he would bring the plants to make drugs to the druggist on the corner of Elm Street and Merrimack Streets. You know where that is, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, oui. I made over 150 images that beautifully documented every aspect of Charles' way of life. The man who had shunned life for 50 years has suddenly become a celebrity. In addition to my passion for photography, I was also an expert wood carver, and I made some carvers of Monsieur Lambert. And Charles, he found a permanent friendship in my heart, and I was honored to be a pallbearer at his funeral in 1914. I was also the photographer at the signing of the Russo and Japanese treaty in 1904 here in New Hampshire. So I was very honored to do that. And I lie here with my beautiful wife, Lucy. Well, merci. Merci, thank you for coming. Merci. Allons-y down this way, down here, to the other gentleman over there. And au revoir, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Merci.
Good evening, ladies. How are we all doing this evening? Did you enjoy your time with Monsieur Bourgeois?
Yeah.
He is fantastic, isn't he? Well, I gotta tell you, we are not standing at my gravesite. That's why we have a little picture here. This is my tombstone, and it's located all the way on the other side of this hill here. Oh. So we decided it would be a bit too far out of your way to go and see it. If you want to on your own time, you're more than encouraged to, but for the purposes of this tour, I've come here to spend time with you. So let me tell you about myself. My name is Lieutenant Jean B Grenier, a pilot in the United States Army. I was born in Manchester in 1909. My father, Alphonse, was a well-known West Side contractor who loved horse racing. I attended Heavey School at St. Marie's, West High, and the University of New Hampshire. At West High, I was distinguished in my studies and won letters in football, baseball, and basketball. And at UNH, I was an outstanding athlete, earning 3 boxing letters. After my graduation in 1930, I attended graduate school for a year and became assistant boxing coach. In 1931, I went to Kellyfield, Texas for a course in aviation. My commission came because of my extra military training at UNH and Camp Devens, Massachusetts. In February 1934, a mail plane I was piloting crashed near Salt Lake City, Utah. I was 25 years old. My body was brought back to Manchester for a full military funeral held at St. Marie's Church. On June 7, 1927, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved spending $15,000 to begin construction of a Manchester airport. The board was no doubt influenced by the words of renowned airfield construction expert Carl Keniston, who told them, "You have the best natural site for an airport of any municipality in New England, bar none." The airport continued to grow, and 15 years later, 2 names were submitted to the United States government to rename the Manchester Air Base. The 2 entries were former Mayor Arthur E. Monroe and Jean B. Grenier. On January 22, 1942, I was honored to have the new air base dedicated as Grenier Field.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. That was
Awesome. What rank were you again?
Lieutenant.
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 He was young. In what branch?
Air Force.
Air Force. I'm trying to get my granddaughter to
Sorry, Army.
become a cadet.
Army.
There was no Air Force until after.
It wasn't Air Force. No, I was an airman in the Army. That's why, yeah.
good. Well, thank you.
So,
young. So Grenier
absolutely.
Field.
Grenier Field, yes.
Which is my jam. Trying to get my granddaughter to think about.
How many people have you seen on the tour so far?
Ooh. Oh my God. Nice.
So my name is William Jutras. Although I'm not buried here at Main Calvary, this beautiful monument was erected in my honor after I was killed in action in the Ryaville St. Mihiel sector. I was an officer of the Lafayette Guards, Yankee Division. I volunteered to carry a warning to my platoon in an attempt to keep them from being ambushed by German machine gun nests lying in wait. I succeeded and saved the platoon from annihilation. I was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross posthumously, and the Jutras Post number 43. American Legion was named in my honor. A graveside ceremony is held each year, and a mass is said at the St. Augustine Jutras Post Memorial Monument. Over here, Lucian Gosling was the sculptor, and Manchester artist Omer Lasonde was the technical advisor for the Jutras Post Memorial Monument. The decision to use Lucian Gosling was made after viewing a model submitted by him. Mr. Gosling had recently completed the Pulaski Equestrian Monument in Pulaski Park. The memorial is made of New Hampshire granite, a soldier cast in bronze, and a cross flanked by 2 columns. It is 15 feet high and 4 feet wide. It was constructed by the Federal Art Project of the Works Progress Administration and sponsored by the Jutras Post, number 43. The total cost was about $10,000, $7,000 of that amount furnished by the WPA, and the remaining $3,000 raised by subscription by Jutras Post. The memorial was dedicated Sunday, October 8th, 1939, with over 5,000 people in attendance. I am honored to be included in this beautiful monument that was erected as a tribute to the memory of Manchester's veterans. Thank you. Come on to the grass, don't be shy.
Will they still bring service people that have passed to be buried here?
So this specific spot is World War I and World War II
Oh, okay.
for New Hampshire veterans.
Where is Jutras actually buried?
St. Augustine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's the grocery store
Hey, Morgan.
So, good evening, folks. Hello. My name is Desir Byron, and I was born in 1873 and passed away in 1952. I was the son of Theophily, I think that's how it's pronounced, Theophily. I had it earlier, now all of a sudden it's gone. Byron. I graduated from Laval University in 1895 with honors, and Tufts School of Dentistry in 1901. I practiced dentistry for many years in the Notre Dame section of Manchester, where I was a lifelong resident. I was very civic-minded, serving as a member of the Manchester Country Club, the Elks and Joliet Clubs, and as president of the Circle National Club. As an alderman, I led the successful fight in 1914 to build the Kelly Falls Bridge. In June of 1951, Alderman Roger E. Brassard introduced the following motion at a meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and it read, "Inasmuch as Dr. Byron has contributed largely to the construction of the bridge, the people of Notre Dame feel it would be most befitting to pay the deserved tribute to Dr. Byron by changing the name of the Kelly Falls Bridge to the Desir Byron Bridge." This was so done. In the petition for the bridge name change, the section of West Manchester called Notre Dame was mentioned. The boundaries were probably best summed up in an article on Franco-American history that appeared in the New Hampshire Sunday newspaper dated December 9th, 1951. It defined the Notre Dame area as west of the river and north of Sullivan Street. Byron Street in Pinardville is also named in my honor. And that is me. Is there? So how many of you folks live in the Notre Dame area? Do you really? Lifelong-ish?
I live like in between them two. I live on Kelly.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. So you are right in the area. Yeah. And how many of you folks call it the Kelly Street Bridge or the Byron Bridge? Yeah. So I think it has faded over time that the bridge is actually named for me. What was that?
They should have a plaque.
They should. I'm thinking just right across the entrance. Right.
Like the ribbon.
Yep. So.
You know what? I would think the neighbors too.
And so this is when I go off book, and so everything up to that point now is just kind of. So I like to think that you folks, because I gave so much money to the bridge, the building of the bridge, that it was really you folks and Manchester's Notre Dame area poor hygiene habits, that oral hygiene that was able to, that really was where the money came from. So thank you.
Where his practice was?
For not brushing your teeth. Appreciate that.
Do you happen to know where his practice was?
I don't. I believe it was in this area, though. And some interesting things. We had a son. Eugenie was my wife, but my son, Paul, our son, served as a lieutenant colonel in World War II. It was part of the Army Medical Corps. Also, if you come over here, which I thought was very interesting, is my wife was also a doctor of dental science. And she was alive in 1872 to 1965, and I just think that's very interesting, because I imagine back then, certainly not the case now, but back then I imagine that was a rare thing.
Yeah, I wonder if she went to
Tufts as well.
Where did she go for dental school?
I wonder if they met at Tufts, or if they met later. But yeah.
This is when I thought there was a grave down, but it's not down. It's supposed to be there.
I thought that too.
Yeah, when I went for the walk, and I was like, oh my God, there's a grave down. No, it's not.
No.
Thank you so much for coming out. I hope you're enjoying yourself so far. I guess I'm the final act in your evening's performance, so thank you for being here.
The finale.
The grand finale.
The grand finale.
My name is Lucian Gosling, and I was born in 1883 in Whitefield, New Hampshire. My father was of French ancestry, and his family first settled in North America in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and then moved on to New Hampshire. My mother came from a family of sculptors. The best known among them was Philip Hebert of Montreal. whose monuments are known in that city and throughout the provinces of Quebec and Ontario. As a small boy, I attended St. Augustine's Academy. By 1909, without ever taking a lesson, I had completed a bust of Napoleon Bonaparte as my first work. My second was that of my uncle Philip Hebert, and my third was a statuette of none other than Abraham Lincoln. In 1911, I enrolled in l'Académie Julienne in Paris, France, where I studied for 2 years and won a gold medal in competition. I returned to Manchester in 1916 and opened my own studio, executing numerous statues and medallions of prominent Franco-Americans throughout New England and New York. As someone of French ancestry and living in West Manchester, where there are so many of French descent, I focused on the Franco-Americans. Among some of the outstanding monuments in Manchester that I have completed include the World War Memorial in Victory Park, Sweeney Memorial, Jutras Post Memorial, Pulaski Memorial, the Joseph P. Chattel Memorial at St. Augustine's Cemetery, the marble statues at St. Joseph's Chapel, the Alfred J. Chrétien Memorial, and T.J. Lebrecq Memorials, both here at Mount Calvary Cemetery, and the busts of Bishop Girton, Dr. Auguste Brienne, and Franklin Pierce. I also executed large panels of relief, or plaques, among them St. Joseph's Grammar School, St. Anthony's School, soldiers killed at World War I, members of ACA, and Reverend Louis Ramsey, chaplain of Jutras Post. But alas, my greatest works were never to be, because the funding fell short. One was a $50,000 war memorial of Joan of Arc in Lafayette Park, opposite St. Mary Church and facing the city. It was to measure 72 feet in length at the base. There were to be 7 steps to the first platform, where there would be a floor 11 feet deep, running the entire length, 72 feet, of the monument. This floor would lead to a second series of steps, 14 in number, broken in the center by a high pedestal 16 feet high. On top of this, the equestrian statue of Joan of Arc in bronze, 18 feet high from the base of the statue to the top of the helmet. The sword raised another foot above the head. In all, the monument was to be 42 feet tall. There were to be numerous plaques throughout the memorial, and an American eagle surmounting the front with a fountain. My second work that never came to be was a colossal eagle on top of Rock Rimmon. This was to measure 10 feet in diameter on a pedestal 20 feet high. The eagle itself would measure 12 feet from its claws to its bill, and the tip of its outstretched wings 18 feet. This great bird passed above a series of esplanades and stair approaches and would be visible for miles when illuminated at night. It was my honor to create a legacy for myself, paying tribute to these important people here in the city I love through my art of sculpture. The family tree of the Gosling family is on the other side here, and I think you might find it to be an interesting piece of history in the way that it's displayed. Do you all recognize some of the statues and plaques that he designed?
A few.
A little disappointed that it wasn't a sculptor who did the yeah.
You'll notice that it's a substantial headstone, though. As a sculptor, I'm sure that would have been important to him. Stood the test of time.
So, Lucian, you did the cross up here with
the Alfred J. Chrétien Memorial and the T.J. Lebrecq Memorials. Those are the two. I don't believe that.
Not that one?
I don't think it's the one. None of them are represented by historical figures that are here tonight. The ones that he did.